All right, it is Sunday, June 23rd, 2019. Welcome, Dandies. We have a very special guest today. Martin Atkins joins us from
Yeah.
Hello from
woo,
Chicago.
Chicago, Illinois.
We
Right?
love Chicago.
We do. We do. I'm actually from up around that way, just south of Chicago is where I grew up.
All right,
Um,
whereabouts?
a little town called Morrison, Illinois,
Okay,
near Sterling, Rock Falls, kind of that area.
okay.
So, yep. Chicago was the city growing up when I was a kid, of course.
Yeah, I'm liking it. We're down by the White Sox in a place called Bridgeport, and
Uh-huh.
it's just the neighborhood's just exploded. So you can, it's just good. It's great. You know, there was a time there in the '90s where we were in the middle of no man's land, and
Right.
but it's pretty cool right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely grown. It changes every time I go back.
Yeah,
Seems like I don't know where I am every time I go back to the city.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine you're pretty busy. First tour in 14 years, getting ready to kick off for Pigface.
Well,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it's not just that. It's the 30th anniversary of the label,
Oh
Invisible
yeah.
Records, you know. And
Hmm.
plus, I mean, I used to just get behind my drum kit and go crazy. Um, you know,
Right.
I turned 60 years old this August. So, you know, I stopped
Yeah.
drinking in January and I'm trying to, one of the reasons it took a while for us to connect today, I was just working out. Sometimes when I get on the elliptical, I just zone out and go for it. And
Yeah.
and that's like a job in itself, just getting
Right.
ready to do 17 shows in a row, you know.
Right.
Um, so
How do you
that's
feel
going on.
after making that kind of a change?
Oh, good. I had 16 years sober, and then my dad died, and I was just like, oh, screw this, you know. But um, you know, so that's going on. But at the same time, I've been teaching for 16 years now, and I'm down at a university called Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois, and
Hmm.
I'm reworking the music industry program there. And so half of this summer is some pretty crazy, lengthy meetings about what the new curriculum will look like, and you know, jumping through some hoops there, and it's just there's just a lot going on. There's
Yeah.
just a lot
Yeah. I'm an
going
educator myself, so
on. All right,
I know how that goes. Yep.
yeah,
Yep. I teach special education, but yeah, it's a job, and then there's the after school job part of the job, and then
yeah,
there's this job that we're doing now too. So
yeah. I mean, and it's like anything, you know. You can noodle around at anything, but if you really care, it takes a lot of time and effort to force some change through the systems that exist, and
no,
Absolutely.
absolutely,
you
yeah.
know. So
So how did the teaching gigs come about? How did you fall into that?
well, I started teaching by accident. Um,
Hmm.
we were working on um, one of the last tours, one of the last Pigface tours, and we had 20,000 promotional CDs, 80,000 promotional postcards with 10 different partners, and
Yeah.
150 street team kids around the country who wanted to help. And I'm like, we got piles of postcards that had to be sorted out, CDs that needed a label on. I'm like, this is crazy. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, I could go and get some of these new fangled interns from
Right.
Columbia College, Chicago, which is just up the street. So I went,
Uh-huh.
I went to Columbia College and I did a little presentation. I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is my history with all these bands. I'm not just, you know, I'm not just here trying to get some free help. And
Right.
and they said, well, fantastic. When could you start? And I said, well, I could I could put 3 interns in my car now, you know, and go back
Right.
to the label. And they're like, no, when could you start teaching this stuff? I'm like, teaching what? What are you
Oh
talking
man.
about?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, we don't have anybody teaching our touring class. And it was completely unexpected. And, you know, at that time, um, I left school when I was 16 years old. So I didn't feel as though I was qualified to teach anything except, you know, I've spent my life doing this stuff we put out 350 albums through the label. I've spent my life on the road, you know. So I'm like, well, what's the craziest thing I could say? And that was like, yeah, you know, sure. And so, and I thought that was it. I'd just start teaching this class, and it would be this crazy thing I would do one day a week. But I walked into the first class, and they're like, oh yeah, here's this textbook, which was, I should have kept one actually. It was like touring a theater production written in 1952.
Oh my goodness! You're right.
We're not using this book. You know what? Why would anybody in this class sign up for this class? You know, and so I started to write my first book, which became Tour Smart, which became a music business bestseller on Amazon, and then I started to get offers to go and speak in like Norway, Europe, South America, Canada, South by Southwest. I've done the last like 12 years at South by Southwest, you know, and it just kind of set me off on this different journey, if you like. It was kind of really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of work. I mean, you're a very prolific guy. I mean, I definitely say that, and following you on social media and everything, just to always have your fingers in something. It seems like you're always busy.
Well,
but that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in what's going on, and you know, I started. So, you know, I have 4 boys of my own, and so I started to, instead of going into their bedrooms and say, hey, you know, can I swear on this show?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Go for it.
So instead of saying, you know, get the fuck out of bed, I put the get the fuck out of bed slide into my lectures, and then came up with all this like this backstory about why you should get the fuck out of bed, which is, you know, you're 5 hours a day ahead of somebody who gets up at 10 o'clock if you get up at 5, and that turns out to be like 74 extra days a year, and that's how you make it in the business. It's not one huge thing. It's a bunch of tiny little things. And so I start doing that. And then I meet the guys from Dark Matter Coffee, because I tweet, get the fuck out of bed every morning. And we turned that into my own brand of coffee. And it's just, it's just been crazy. It's just been really crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I
gotta try this coffee.
Yeah, where can we get that?
I'm a big coffee fan. Yeah.
Well, so Dark Matter have it online. They have, I think, six locations in Chicago, and it's all over the place. My friend just bought some in Copenhagen.
Oh, right on. Oh, so it's gone international. Right on.
Yeah, yeah, that's been a real education for me, because they're quite a different coffee company. They release vinyl, cassette tapes. They put on their own block party. They're doing I think a guitar FX pedal with Kirk Hammett from Metallica. They took me to Japan. We launched the brand in Japan. They took me over there. I mean, they're just lunatics in the way that we all used to be lunatics in the 80s and 90s, you know.
Right.
So
that's fascinating. Yeah.
It's and then of course, you know, that becomes part of a class. You know, because people are like, oh, I've got to start a record label. I'm like, well, maybe you need to start a coffee company, or what can we learn from these lunatics? And then I'm going down to Jerome, Arizona in August to do a talk for Maynard at his winery down there. So it's just like, you know, it's just a really interesting journey. It all goes back into into classes and education, and that kind of completes the circle for me, you know.
Right. You know, I mean, I was going to ask you about that too, and I was looking at the 2 books, or trying to decide to settle on one. I'm either going to pick up Tour Smart or Band Smart. So, I mean, I assume that both of them have, you know, plenty of good advice for anybody in entertainment at all. But let's say you're starting off a podcast, kicking off something, asking for a friend.
Right.
Which of those 2 do you think's got probably the best advice for somebody, just overall, and like let's say working social media?
Well, I would say band smart, because at one point I nearly kind of scribbled band out and wrote brand, because it's all the same. You know,
Right.
I mean, if so, your podcast is your brand, and if any brand wants to have fans, not customers, you know, I
Right.
mean, and the fans will be customers, but they'll also be your evangelists. They'll also spread the word for you. So I think band smart. But if you send me an email, I'll just have Molly send you a copy. That's fine.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel bad doing that.
We'll put you a bag of coffee in there as well, so you can stay up all night.
Oh
reading
man,
it.
all right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel so bad about that. I've actually got like so much shit from you in my house.
You're very generous, man.
You are
John's
very
got a
generous,
great.
I've got a great collection. It's just like at one time it was like 2003. I think I sent you a letter, and just like, you know, I lost a friend and he died, and he was a big Pigface fan as well. And just like, you know, just thanks for, you know, I've had a shitty year, but thanks for making this, you know, this great music. I think you sent me something like 25 CDs, a couple shirts. You know, one of them was like one of your, you know, your gas station attendant type, you know, that shirt.
Oh, the work shirts.
Yeah, the work shirts and stuff
Oh, I
like
love
that.
those work shirts.
Right.
You know, that was really weird. You know, people used to spend ages going through them to try and find their name or a friend's name on one, and like it just
Right.
turned into a thing. It really
Yeah.
turned into a thing unexpectedly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a name. What was the name on the one you got shot, John?
Jesus Martinez.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the name on mine.
Sorry, I hope we
funny.
didn't ruin that one for you.
Yeah. But I thought it was just funny with your name being Martin. So it's like, yeah, maybe that's his Hispanic alias. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you know, so it's really strange. You know, I see so many artists who, like, I mean, thank you for saying thank you, right? But like, you know, when you're an artist and people come to your shows or buy your shit, it's a relationship. It's a two-way street, and I see so many artists who just can't be bothered with their fans. The fans are kind of like just a pain in the ass, and it's like, well, be careful, man, because when that pain in the ass goes away, you know, you don't have a career,
Right.
you know, and you don't have anybody showing up at even a small acoustic show, you know, and to me, it's always been really simple, you know. It's like, it's just a blessing to have anybody give a shit about anything.
Right.
It's so true. I mean, there are artists who I have encountered in my life, you know, and John and I have both kind of been blessed in that we've had a chance to meet a number of people, and we stay loyal to the ones that are actually cool and real with us and that don't just blow us off.
Right. And I mean, so honestly, it's like some kind of 80s throwback metal bands. Like, how dare you talk to? It's like, what the hell, man? You know,
Right.
just get a grip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember that. Yes, and we saw the last tour. Caught you in Springfield, Missouri. But yeah, I think it was the first time we met face to face. Of course, you meet a lot of folks I know, but also met Charles Levi at that show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool guy.
I was just hanging out with Charles 2 nights ago. He's doing really well.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. Yeah, it was a good show. It was definitely. I was trying to remember who all was on that bill. So you had like Sheep on Drugs was playing with you. I think Han Elias was also on that one.
You know, I just saw some pictures from the Palatine show on that tour.
Oh yeah.
And it's because our sound guy Jamie Duffy passed away like 7 years ago now, and 7 years ago, like yesterday, I think it was.
No, I'm sorry.
So it's
Wow.
I mean, you know, you do this stuff for a while, and it gets more joyful in some respects. It gets really heavy in other respects.
Right.
You know.
No, I totally know what you like. It's my birthday today, by the way. I'm not
Oh,
trying
happy
to.
birthday,
That made me
man.
think. Thank you.
This is so. Don't
but
you
it
have
just-
Don't you have anything better to do than talk to
Are
me
you
on your
kidding me, man?
birthday?
Thrill. This is a thrill. This will be a memorable birthday. You know, I
Well,
got to talk to Martin Atkins, man. That's cool for us.
Right.
Well, okay.
So
I'll try and make my answers
I
amazing.
yes, please do. But no, I'm getting to that age. I'm getting up in my 40s, getting close to 50, and you can take that moment to reflect on, God, I don't want to be getting any older. I don't like this. This sucks. Or you can also look at it and go, I'm still here, and you know what? Still have most of my hair.
Yeah.
All right, I can still get around. I got a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
I've got some really awesome stories out of it so far, so far, and that's not so bad. I can, I go back and forth. I'm human, right? There are the days where I don't love getting older, and then there are days like I don't know if I'd go back.
Right. Well, I'm It's weird. I have those thoughts too. Like, I had an offer. I'm working on a book about my time in PIL, and I spent 5 years in and out of the band, and but I think about the first 4 or 5 months, and it was insane.
Right.
We did live television. We did the first American tour. We did American Bandstand. My first gig was recorded as a Paris au Printemps album. We did the John PIL show. I'm like, it was just in just a very short period of time, we did an awful lot. And
that had to be a big shock. Yeah.
well, yeah, but I was also drunk a lot, and we were on all kinds of drugs, and so it's like, part of me thinks like, I think not having been on the road for 10 years before all the crazy stuff happened, it was just craziness at the age of 20, and maybe I would kind of savor that time more if I had that to do again. And I also think I know I'm quite shy, and so in retrospect, we do the show, and I'd like go to my hotel room, and I wasn't familiar with the workings of the music business. So like now, I'd be out on the street meeting people who didn't have money for a ticket and put them on my own personal guest list and tell the promoter to fuck off. These are my 10 guests.
Right.
And if they don't get in, I'm not playing, but back then I'm sure people thought I was just a snotty kid,
Right.
but I was just a shy 20-year-old who didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right. Yeah. So how did that come about? I don't see a lot, I've done the homework, of course, and of course I've been following you for years. I've been a fan of yours since I was probably, 20 years old, but I don't hear a lot about your coming up in the UK, and just sort of like you magically appeared here in America at one time. So how was that?
Well, that's one of the things I've started to talk about, and unfortunately, I don't know if you heard about what happened with a platform called Pledge Music, but we funded my book about PIL through them, and I think they're just declaring bankruptcy and keeping everybody's money. But it started to talk about that time, 75 to 85, that first decade, and that's been really good for me. I was in Manchester, London, Tokyo, New York, LA, Atlanta, here in Chicago, doing these kind of presentations with all my slides, but like hundreds of slides, and working through some of the chapters with some of the people in the chapters in the audience.
Oh wow!
And it was really cool. So hopefully, when that book gets done, which I'm hoping to finish it this summer, and find a way to put it out now that Pledge Music has kept all this money. That will be like an insight into, my kind of DIY and my punk beginnings, because all of that just flowed straight into Invisible Records, and the energy that I experienced in London in 76, 77. I mean, that same crazy energy was in Chicago in 89. You know, it's one of the reasons I moved to Chicago. It's one of the reasons I got involved with ministry. And I was just drawn to the city after living in New York and LA. I was just drawn to Chicago because of this crazy industrial music scene and Wax Trax Records and all of this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely
Chicago really is its own vibe.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a good vibe.
A lot of cities you can go to across the country that are just like any other city, but I've always liked Chicago. I got a chance to go to Wax Trax a few times back when I was younger and to the old brick and mortar.
Well,
back
I'm
when
sure
it was open.
you know, Julia Nash, Jim Nash's daughter, has put together a really great documentary. And
yes, I've got my copy ordered. I'm looking forward to it. Industrial Accident. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm friends with the guys up at Google, and they did an interview with her, and I'm friends with Julia. That was really kind of it's really kind of nice to see all of these crazy random bits and pieces are being preserved. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You try to explain that to a lot of people who live on the either coast. It's just like, I'm a big fan of Wax Trax, and it's like, well, you can't just be a fan of just a label. I mean, just talk about bands like, no, you can be a fan of a label, especially when you look at that one. You know, it's definitely unique. I mean, it's definitely unique acts. And, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I think, you know, having Invisible Records, there was a time when we had reps all over the country, and people would get Invisible Records tattoos, which just made me feel crazy.
Right.
You know, like, holy crap. I mean, you know, now you got to be careful. I can't just slip and put out a Bay City Rollers album or a tribute record. You know,
you got to think about that every time you get ready to,
yeah, I mean,
right. Is this going to live up to somebody wearing my tattoo?
The rest of their life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh. Am I going to make them regret getting that in?
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, they've got to know something though experimental and crazy could happen. You never know. I mean, if you're getting that tattoo, you got to kind of know there might be a Barry Manilow cover coming your way or something.
Well, I think we did a really good job with Pigface of slowly but constantly letting people know, like, hey, you know, we don't know what's going to go on. Don't expect what happened last time to happen next time.
Yeah,
you know, we did. So the lineup kept changing. We did an in-store appearance at. It wasn't the Wax Trax store. It was another store in Chicago, and we made a point. Like, I was there, Olga was there, Chris Connolly was there, William Tucker was there, Paul Raven was there, and we were all there at the store. And we're like, "Hey, everybody, we're here to celebrate. Welcome to Mexico, asshole!"
Right.
And I hired a mariachi band, and we just left. We left and got drunk somewhere. And so everybody that was at the store, you know, saw us. It wasn't just a hoax where we weren't there. We were there,
right.
And we chose to entertain everybody with a mariachi band. And so, I mean, you know, we've had bagpipes on stage, harp, cello, flowers and trees and Christmas tree lights, and just, you know, sitars and belly dancers. It's like, you know, I got a little bit upset with a few people a few weeks ago. Like, well, I'm not going to buy tickets to the Pigface show until I know the lineup. I'm like, oh, fuck off.
Right.
You know, but in 1991, you didn't even know who Trent Reznor was on stage anyway.
Right.
You know, and I think at every single Pigface show, there's always been more on stage than we said would be on stage. There's always been surprises, and there's always been, you know, craziness. Danny Carey from Tool came out with us for 10 shows, but nobody knew who Tool were back then, you know.
Right.
Just Trent did a few shows with us. You know, there's just people just didn't know, you know, who was what, Leslie Rankin and Silverfish and Ruby, and nobody knew who Meg Lee Chin was. When
we were just talking about Ruby.
Yeah.
It's like to now. I think people, you know, it was an accident. We did one show in 2016, which I thought was going to be our last show, just at House of Blues, and we put we put some tickets on sale with some special stuff for people as we do,
Mhm.
And it wasn't until a couple of hundred people had bought the tickets. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
These people bought tickets without knowing who's going to be there.
Right.
And once again, that was just like finding out that somebody had an Invisible Records tattoo. It was like humbling.
Yeah.
But then
Mm-hmm.
it put way more pressure on me. Not that there wasn't pressure anyway, to make the lineup awesome
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
if
No, that
100
makes
people
sense.
signed a petition to please Martin make sure it's awesome. Just by supporting something, by implication, you make everybody be on their best behavior and go the extra mile.
Right. I think that's one thing
It already means something to
yeah,
them.
and I always appreciate that.
You know,
I can
that-
remember in one, I don't remember which album it was, but in your liner notes, it was just writing that the current incarnation of Pigface is, and it was basically the liner for that record. So it's like people got to understand it's an entity. It's just its own sort of spirit. I think in every album, and every album's got its differences, everything else like that. But somehow, some way, you manage to tie in a sound. And, I was telling that to my wife, and I was like, I don't think it's all just the drums. I mean, you definitely got a unique drumming style. But, somehow you from album to album, I mean, how do you kind of define a Pigface sound? Or are there any tracks you get kicked out and say, like, this isn't a Pigface track?
Well, no, I mean, if you listen to the broad spectrum of Pigface, it would be difficult to imagine what wouldn't be a Pigface track, except something that just, I mean, it could be on any instrument in any studio with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It would just have to be like not interesting.
Yeah.
So, and I think, I mean, I'd say the one connecting thing will be me producing the albums.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Steve Albini produced the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an album you might not know of called China Dub Sound System.
I don't have it. I know of it, but I don't have it. Yeah.
Right. And really, that was the last Pigface album. There was an album called Six, studio album. But then I went to China in 2007 and 2009, and I was supposed to be there for like a week, and I kept extending my stay, and I was hanging out with all these punk kids and some street gang kids, and then some Tibetan singers, traditional guzheng players, and three women who played in the orchestra, and then some fucking hip hop kids, and I'm like, you know what? Some scratch DJs. I'm like, let's make a Pigface album, and
This is the new Pigface, yeah.
Right, and to me, that was like, it was almost like the Bob Hope and Bing Crosby movies, like they would go the road to somewhere, and they'd just go to a different place, and some things would be constant, and it just made perfect sense to me. And then once I got back, and I spent quite a long time mixing everything, chopping everything together. I'm like, well, this is so different.
Right.
I just thought it was like too big of a leap for a Pigface fan, but I think I regret that now, and I might re-release that as like the lost.
Oh, that would be all. I'm like super curious about this now.
Yeah, I remember following you when you were over there on social media anyway. Back then, that trip looked really fascinating.
I mean, it was like the logical extension of all of this. Like, and there's lots of things that are Pigface that you don't know about. Like Lane Staley spent 2 days in the studio with us during Notes from the Underground. Just nothing happened. He just hung out.
Right.
There's all this other stuff. So there are things that haven't become Pigface.
Right.
So you have a habit of just identifying some pretty incredible talents. Now I'm curious, like, who right now is somebody that we should kind of keep our ear open to?
Well, so there's, I think most notably, Galen Lee, who jumped on stage with us
Yes.
in 2016. And I'm actually releasing a 7-inch single that's exclusively for people who get the VIP package from us.
Mhm.
It's a red vinyl 7-inch with Galen Lee singing Point Blank on one side, and of course Trent singing Sock on the other side. But she is just kind of miraculous fiddle player using a looping pedal, and that's been very crazy interesting for me to be involved with her. And but I also one of the things I'm slightly infatuated with is Leslie and Ruby. I did 4 or 5 dates with her at the end of last year. Maybe September, October of last year, just me and her. And I really like what she's doing in terms of like electronics and circuit bending and programming, which she does all of that herself. And then her singing and her lyrics and her attitude over the top. And so for me, it's kind of strange. And this isn't really what you're asking me, but I'll talk about this for a bit anyway.
No, this is great.
So I think that I always try and think, or when I do sit and think, when I stop and think, I'm like, well, I want to do the things that I can uniquely do.
Right.
And I think one part of the things that I can uniquely do is do things where I don't give a shit if my drumming's going to get a good review.
Right.
You know, I did that in 1980. I got a Grammy for my work on Wish with 9 Inch Nails.
Right.
You know, I just don't give a shit. And so when I play with Ruby, the right, it feels really good because the right drumming for her is really simple, which takes, you know, we were in New York City and it turned out that it was the same night that Killing Joke played. So I ran over to see those guys, give them a quick hug in the dressing room. But then it turned out that we were playing what was the Killing Joke after party at another club. And so, you know, Youth, who plays bass in Killing Joke, produces everybody all the time. And, you know, Sir Paul McCartney, he works with Sir Paul McCartney. And I remember thinking some drummers in that situation with all of those guys in the audience would, in an attempt to impress, would overplay. I mean, and even a little bit of extra playing would have been a massive misstep, I thought. You know, and then the same thing when we played in LA, Nick Launay, who produced the Flowers of Romance album back in 82, 83, In Excess, Kate Bush. He's still producing now. I think Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs. I mean, he's still producing to this day. He was in the audience, and once again, I was just delighted to just nail some really simple stuff.
Right.
You know, so so we were talking about what is the connection with Pigface and how does this stuff work together. It's in thinking about it, it's that Pigface is larger than me, and I'm happy to facilitate it. And you know, and sometimes that means, you know, I really want some people to shine. Like when Meg Lee Chin came out, I stop playing and stand on my drum seat and say, "Hey, everybody, this is Meg Lee Chin. Are you kidding me?" You know, people are like, "Well, who the hell is this?" And they soon found out. You know.
Well, I mean, is it? So I guess it's not that hard for you then to just kind of let go of that control, even though, you know, I mean, running the label, you know, putting together these albums, you know, and being as prolific and hardworking as we talked about, you still got to have kind of an element of just, you know, rolling the dice too when you're working with that many people in rotation, and different personalities and and clashes. Have you just I don't know if that's going to be a problem, but I guess you just got to let go a lot, don't you, and just kind of trust your instincts.
That's another thing that I think I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, holy crap, what am I doing? I'm working on my 4th book. I get paid just stupid amounts of money to go speak all over the world. I was just in Medellin, Colombia, and I think I'm going up to Finland in October, which is a little bit tight for the Pigface tour. But what am I doing? But then on Friday, I was in Decatur, Illinois, and the last show we did, we had 9 drum kits on stage. So I'm just driving around Decatur. We had a meeting down at the university, and here's a yard sale, and this guy's got a big silver drum kit out in the yard, and I screech to a halt. I'm like, hey, what do you want for the kit? It's like, I don't know, $50. And I mean, it was definitely worth a few $100s to me just for one show, to have it at the back for somebody to jump and be kit number 9 or kit number 10. And I just took that as like okay, that's a little sign that, hey, keep going. Of course I could, go on Craigslist or eBay and find a bunch of drum kits at the drop of a hat. But to have one in front of me for $50 felt like it was just like, hey, keep on going down that path. And then I drove, by the time I got home, there was an offer for me to go speak in Dallas. And, we're talking to the guy, and, it's like a music business conference thing. And they're like, yeah, we'll pay you to do it. We'll cover all your expenses, flight and hotel. And I was just looking at, maybe I want to go to Dallas 2 or 3 months before the Pigface show to DJ, do a spoken word thing, get my street team kids together, buy them all a drink, and see if anybody needs anything. And sometimes you have people helping you out who really need a bit of help themselves, So just seeing what's going on, and so these things happen that make me think, okay, I should keep going with this, and there are things going on between I would say about 35 people who are going to be involved in this tour off and on at different times that would have made me 20 years ago lose my mind. With travel, immigration is much harder now. And more expensive, So, some American members are abroad and just need flights, but other people need work permits and all of that stuff. So at some point you throw 50 balls in the air, and you hope that you can keep 30 of them up there somehow by juggling, blowing them, kicking them with your foot, getting a hairdryer, whatever it takes.
Right.
And then you open the door to being surprised by things as well. I mean, it's not always 10 bad things that happen, although we had an outbreak of spinal meningitis on a Pigface tour, and it wasn't the night before the end of the tour. It was the night before we crossed into Canada. So the Canadian Board of Health and the government were involved.
Good Lord.
We had Ogre in Scandinavia in the early 90s, had hepatitis and had to be hospitalized and then flown back from Malmo to Vancouver, which is like, anybody who books travel, it's like, that's a crazy 5 flights. At the best of times, with 1 day's notice, it was $4 or $5 grand. So, but that's like, that's Pigface is, it's an obstacle course. And I don't know if you saw pictures recently of all the climbers queuing up to get to the top of Everest.
How it's become a kind of a Disney tourist attraction.
I saw those pictures, and I actually said to the television, I'm like, fuck that. Try going on the road with Pigface, motherfuckers. You know what I mean? But so, I don't know which number Pigface tour this will be. The 20th, maybe the 15th. But we're all pretty good at being in Pigface. It's a thing, and I think it's really helped a lot of people, artists, crew, logisticians, be better at their shit. I think it's really been helpful, and I get the sense from
I can see that.
Yeah, it's like whoa, I did that. We put 9 drum kits on the stage. I think I can handle this bloody difficult banjo player and his asshole trombonist. I mean, it's like it becomes this yardstick. Like, well, look, I did that. And it's no accident that a couple of our early crew members, and in particular Jolly Roger, our tour manager, he's a vet who served the country in Vietnam.
Right.
So it's like, you surround yourself with people who can deal with the insanity.
Yeah. Now it's a good idea. I mean, just having the best support that you can have, but picking a good team is really important. And doing that.
Yeah.
And that probably kind of goes back to the people that are buying tickets without knowing the lineup, because they've seen enough to know, okay, this guy knows how to pick a good team.
Yep. I've never been disappointed. So, I think it'll be good. We're looking forward to it.
Right. And, maybe this will be a first, but yeah, I don't think so. I think people are already, people who are going to be on the tour are already very excited. And that, I think that's the first thing. But I think people bring their A game to a Pigface tour for sure.
So the VIPs have already gotten their, did they get their lineup info yet? They did?
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, it's going to come out online sooner or later then.
Yeah, they
it will. Or did they have to sign a non-disclosure that they
No.
All right.
No, they can so that was a personalized note for me. I think we probably, and hundreds of those went out. We also gave people a code for their friends to get a discount.
Oh, right on.
Which I think was cool. I always try and put things on these deals that are surprises. I think people are so frightened of being ripped off, right? So it's like, okay, I bought 6 things. Where are my 6 things?
Right.
And that, with my PIL book, people spent money on different levels, like the book and a pass and different pair of drumsticks, whatever. But I sent everybody a personalized postcard from Atlanta, and then one from London, and then one from Tokyo. And people are like, what the hell? So, I mean, if you just want to make people, and I say it's easy, I mean, it isn't, to be in Tokyo and send out 400 postcards, but it's not insurmountably difficult. And the amount of delight, but it's a great example of like, I have no interest in fulfilling the least minimum requirement that the relationship demands. My interest is in setting people's heads on fire and delighting them and having and creating a memory, like people are saying to me, "No, I was at a show in '93, and oh my, I'll never forget. I did acid before a show and all this insane stuff, really."
Well, and it's such a personal relationship for a lot of people. And I'm sure it's kind of interesting to be on your side of it, where you have a lot of people that you don't know that have very intimate relationship with you in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and for me, that's, I think that's a precursor to my relationship with my students as an educator. So it's like, I mean, I really like when people say, wow, your music changed my life, or, we made a baby to this
Right.
album or that album, which is a little bit scary. But, I think that the relationship, having taught now for 16 years, I think the students who are now professionals and in the field for over a decade, and I think then that goes back into my my valuing the relationship I have with fans who listened to music and supported what I was doing with the label and Pigface in the early days.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one of the things I'm really happy with, because we're not just trying to do different crazy things on stage. I mean, there's a ticket called the Pay It
Yeah, I was just going to
Forward
mention
ticket.
that. That's a really great idea.
And, yeah, it's like, look, there are some people who were huge fans of the band in the early days who now maybe aren't doing so well physically, mentally, or financially, or all three. And if you're doing well and you want to pay it forward and buy somebody a pair of tickets, here's this ticket that you can buy. And I think 9 or 10 people, one person bought 4 pairs for us to distribute. I mean, and that was just,
That's
I really
awesome.
like that stuff,
Yeah, that's really cool. So, when does the tour kick off officially? Was the first date you're playing?
Oh God! What is it? I think it's November the 15th, maybe.
Right, so that's just right.
Like a Thursday.
All right, well, I'm going to catch you in Kansas City. So
Thursday or Friday, November the 15th or something.
I'm going to catch you in Kansas City. I'll definitely be there. So, yeah, got a couple people out.
That's I looked at that place. That seems like it's a really small place.
It's all right. It's got a couple tiers though. I don't know though. I think it'll be pretty packed. I think the stage is pretty big for that being, that small a place. But I don't know. What do you think, Matt? You've been over there more than I have. To the Record Bar, right?
The Record Bar. You know what? They moved it. I haven't been since they've moved it. But I think it's a pretty decent venue.
It's a nice place.
To it. Yeah. If you need to have a after party at my house, that's cool.
All right, then. You sure?
No thought about it. You got a spare room.
I'll have to run that by my wife. Sure.
She'll be all right with it. She won't have any problem with it. Just tell her I said it's okay.
No, I mean, I can. I mean, I would absolutely say the last thing you want in your house is a Pigface party. Although, I mean, these days I'm waiting to see what everybody wants on the rider. It's probably going to be like water, lactose intolerant milk.
Right. Good place to do laundry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, some vegan stuff and crunchy granola and yeah, I don't know. So we'll probably all be asleep 10 minutes after we come off stage, maybe. I don't know.
That sounds good.
So yeah, that's the aim then, to get through this one sober. You think then?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's not my aim. I just think I think that with 2 buses, 17 shows, and 25 people, I just think anything else would be ridiculous. Because if you see me play drums, I'm just an animal behind the drum kit, and I apply that same focus and adrenaline to everything that I'm doing. So it would just not be smart for me to try and be in party mode on a Pigface tour. It would just, it's just not a good idea.
I can say is, so, along with the aging thing, it's just not as fun as it used to be
Yeah.
anymore. I'm much more interested in doing what we're doing now and sitting down and having conversations with people and getting to really know what makes them them, and what are their interesting stories, and finding those and connecting. That's
Right.
really what I'm getting into right now, the older I
Right.
get.
I've been complaining for about a year and a half, like I don't have enough time to read.
Right.
I'm like, I just want to sit down and chill and smell my basil plants and that stuff. And now I'm getting into hitting the drums and enjoying that. I'm really enjoying the physicality of that for sure.
Just using it as a workout. And
Well, yeah, like as a alternate to
right.
the workout. So it's like, it surprises me just how physical drumming is. So then, maybe 6 months ago, I was thinking, whoo, I just did a 500-calorie workout. Woo, that's crazy on the elliptical, but really that's like a song's worth,
Yeah.
So it's like, okay,
Start weighing the time against each other. Let's see, I can do a song in 3 minutes. It takes me, yeah.
So, and now I'm doing, so I'm trying, and that goes back to the fan thing and the responsibility and the relationship. It's like, look, I mean, I've got to drop another 12 pounds, and my workouts need to go from the 80 minutes that they are to probably 2.5 hours. And right now I'm doing like battle ropes, elliptical, and probably doing like 1,000-1,400 calorie burn. And I might have a trainer come in August, and then just make sure I'm not like 5 shows in kind of hobbling through an important show for somebody,
Right, definitely.
So
Definitely. So, all right. Well, was there, I think that answers a lot of my questions that I had. I really appreciate you coming on, Martin, taking the time. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No problem.
Uh-huh.
Let me ask you a question. So when you said you asked me, like, is there anything you don't want to talk about? Well,
Oh, man,
what would
I
that
don't know.
be? What do you think I
I don't
wouldn't want
know.
to talk
I
about?
just, sometimes you got, well, I think one of the big things we find is, especially people who are musicians for so many times, that maybe animosity with other people, things pop up, with just, bitterness or regret stories that people have, or,
Right.
if there's a name you didn't want mentioned, like, oh yeah, I'll talk about anything. Just don't mention this asshole because I never want to talk to him again, or so.
Well, but do you have a person in
Oh no,
mind?
no.
Or?
I didn't know necessarily if I brought up
No.
a name or something, if it was one you didn't want to hear. You know what I mean? Put something out that's going to embarrass someone or anything else. Or,
So, it's. I mean, I'm at an interesting point in my life, So, like, when I was in Public Image Limited, there's an amazing guitarist in that band called Keith Levine, who had some horrifying and well-known problems with drugs, and we never really got along. He didn't. I wanted to do 100 more shows a year. He wanted to do 100 less. I thought he was amazingly talented. I don't think he thought he was talented, or he was the main person who destroyed his own talent, which was just crazy to me. And so I think some people in writing a book about their time in that band, it will be like, oh, okay, here's the chapter called Keith Levine is an asshole, and let me tell you this. But instead, there was a documentary film came out called The Public Image is Rotten. And I'm in the documentary, I got some, I'm in the documentary quite a bit, but Keith Levine wasn't. And I know it's because he doesn't get along with Johnny Rotten anymore. And another, so instead of thinking like, my arch nemesis got a punch in the face, I called him up and spent 3 hours on the phone with him, talking to him, because I'm like, hey, I want to put you in my book. It's not right that you weren't in the documentary, and I want my book to be right. And even if we clash or we don't agree, or you think I'm an asshole, I think you should be in my book. So that's why I asked you about that, because I'm just at a point where things are pretty nice for me, you know. Nobody like parachuted a present of a nice life and a nice family and four pretty interesting young boys. You know, I've really worked at everything that I'm doing, but it'd be pretty sad if I was just like, you know, still screaming about something or other. You know, I think that you know, I'd certainly had my ups and downs with Megally Chin over the years, but we reconnected a few months ago because I'm like, hey, this might be the last time we go out, and you know, if you want to come over and do a couple of shows, I'd be happy to fly you out, and you know, I'm sure we'd have a good time on stage and whatever, and it was just a really nice conversation. You know, I don't think she's going to do it. You know, there are all kinds of people now who in Europe who just don't want to come to America right now. You know, but yeah, I mean, I think music, when music's good, it's really, it's a great glue for communities. It's a great introduction and door opener. And it's a great healer if you let it be.
I completely agree.
Well, I mean, and that's just the thing. It's just we've had, you know, talked to some other musicians and stuff who just went through bad band breakups and things like that, you know, and they're just like, you know, just try not to, you know, tell that story or, you know, anything. So we just give them that opportunity. I just, like I say, I just don't want to, I don't want to corner anybody on something they don't want to talk about. That's not what, you know, we're not trying to get dirt.
Right. Well, and at the same time, you know, as I said, I turned 60 in August, and, you know, there are people who I've had arguments with or musical differences with in a band, you know, and, you know, Paul Raven and I were in Killing Joke together, and then he was in Murder Inc., and then Pigface. He was on a bunch of Pigface tours, and, you know, I had a falling out with Al from Ministry, and Raven joined Ministry, and that got really interesting for a while. But the fact is, you have to be really, and we got along great, and everything got sorted out before he died, thank goodness. But you have that happen, you know, somebody that you've made music with, you've co-written music and made music with on vinyl and on stage. And you got to be careful, because if you're not careful, your petty feud about something or other might go with them to their grave or with you to your grave.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, that's never good.
So, and there's enough members of Pigface who won't be on this tour because they're not around anymore. Jason McNinch, Jamie Duffy, Paul Raven, and William Tucker. That kind of stuff just changes the frivolous schoolyard nature of some of that shit. And if it doesn't, I think anybody who that doesn't change things for should just be ashamed of themselves.
Well, especially with, like you say, age and experience. And, you know, maybe, you know, that may be something that gets your blood pumping when you're 23, but, you know, life's too short for that shit. That's for sure. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is too short. Yeah.
Right. Sometimes we get so caught up in the loud things that we miss the little things that are really special.
Yeah. Well, I think I did a really good job of bringing this down into misery. Death, the misery.
It's human, though. This is, I didn't take this as a downer. Actually, it's kind of a little bit uplifting, you know, in a way. Hey,
comes full circle.
Things are valuable.
And it's something I talk about. You know, I'm always doing these music business talks where people are like, how do I make it? And, you know, people think that, you know, and I'll say, well, you need to take like 5 to 7 years to carefully do. And they're just like, they're appalled, you know, because the people think it's a 2-year thing. You know, you're going to have a really good 6 months. And I'm like, you know, and I thought it was a 2-year thing when I joined PIL. It was crazy. And here we are 40 plus years later. And I think the more people can understand that if you do this correctly, whatever's going on with genres or fashion, that you can at whatever varying level succeed on your own terms and make things happen. But you need to take a long range view of things for sure. And I think a lot of people would act differently when they're coming up.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
They knew that.
So it kind of reminds me of something I think I saw you say in an interview where you had some bands who were complaining that, you have to work so long at this and work so hard at this. And I mean, you said essentially, look, if you're going to be successful, you're going to be at it 24 hours a day anyway. So just get used to that idea, get used to that idea of always being on, you kind of have to, if that's the lifestyle you're aiming for to make it.
Right.
And
and that's how you get there.
I saw some interview with a country and western singer, and she's like, yeah, there was one day on the promotions tour, I was at the same airport 4 times, like connecting flights to one place or another. I'm like, whoa, okay. I mean, that's, you need to be tough to deal with that.
Yeah, there you go. Come out to the Record Bar.
There we go.
Come see Pigface in November. Martin Atkins, you can find him on Facebook, of course, visiblerecords.com. You got any Twitters, anything else like that? Any social media you want to mention?
My Twitter is MarTeeen, 4 E's, just like the old days, as I like to say.
All right, Martin, thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate having you on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.